Harbor Committee meeting, March 10th, 8 a.m. Let's just go to the agenda. Any non-agenda items? Yes.
I think that it's inappropriate. I think that before much more time goes by, we should have a conversation about the occupation of space at the public landing by very large boats. Includes being used by the general public. So do you want to put that on an agenda so that everybody can be prepared to have a conversation, or want to have a conversation now?
No, we'll add that to an agenda. So,
It's a change of policy, which has been instigated or instituted by a single person, and it looks to me like no conversation has been had about it on a community level. And I think it's a dramatic change and dramatic impact on the aesthetic and use of the facility.
So, with that in mind, let's everybody think about those issues for the next meeting, and that'll be on the agenda.
I would think if you could write down a quick thing of what it's going to say on the agenda, then it would help people to know what it is.
Yeah, there'll be some sort of definition, whether it's going to be.
So, review policy of large boats on public docks.
Yeah, or types, because it doesn't seem like it would be large, it's types of vessels.
Well, the large is the significant impact.
Well, yeah, but if you have a 130-foot traditional schooner that wants to come in on the back dock, I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with that. Right? It's not the length and size, it's the type.
Yeah.
Well, we have designated spaces for large boats. in general.
Oh, you're talking about overnight visitors, right? You're not talking about like,
Well, if they were just overnight, that'd be one thing, but they're staying for 3 or 4 days, some of them.
Yeah, well, I think that's what he's considering overnight.
Yeah.
You know, rather than long-term docks.
It's not a seasonal berth, it's a stay.
So,
A visiting boat.
okay. All right. So basically what we're talking about is the back dock of the public landing.
Well, yeah,
How do you, what do you call that dock?
It's the back dock.
Or the windjammer spaces.
But when the windjammers are gone, but
You're also using the windjammer spaces to bring these boats in,
when I can.
Yeah.
which is
It's allowed.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not sure. That's what the issue is.
Maybe if-
you're pushing the envelope to, if it's not disallowed, then it must be allowed.
Maybe if Lyman Morris
I think
had
that's where the
larger
conversation's
dockage
gonna end
space,
up ultimately.
it would solve the problem.
This determination is being made by a single person. It's not having a.
Well,
It's not coming to a level of
yeah,
conversation
but when
about what do we want it to look like.
I think it merits a conversation. It's a good idea.
it does, it does, but when you say it comes to a single person, you're talking about the harbor master, that's his job. So,
Well, I don't see it in his job description. I don't see his job description. He hasn't got one. But
well,
no, I don't think that is his job. To be honest, I don't. I think that's part of the crux of the conversation.
okay. All right.
So that's why I bring it up. That's why
Yep.
I word it the way I do. It's
So,
a decision. It's
all right.
a policy that's being established by a
And harbor master's
single
role.
individual in the town, and I think it warrants conversation. I think it's a dramatic impact, and I think we ought to talk about it and decide whether or not is that really the way we want to go.
Okay. All righty. Any more non-agenda items?
Yes. Have we discussed any or considered changes to the Harbor and Waterways Ordinance that would need to be acted on promptly
No?
in the course of our business? I've looked over my notes, and the one item I saw was there was a discussion about adding a sanitation clause to the ordinance.
Regarding
Overboard discharge?
from individual boats?
Well, I'm not able to define it specifically. I know the topic was discussed about including something about sanitation in the ordinance.
Yeah. I don't see a high priority to add that into the ordinance. Number one, we've added it to the commercial boat agreements. And number two, I mean, it is just,
It's federal law.
yeah, exactly, it's federal law.
We don't need to, between the state and the federal government, I think they've got it covered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's.
exactly.
I mean,
Thank
you know,
you.
the conversation might be about enforcement. Who does that fall upon? But,
Okay,
and verification.
any other non-agenda items? Moving on, minutes of February 4th. Any changes?
I had an addition, I guess. I didn't keep perfect notes on this, unfortunately, but I thought after Bruce's presentation, there was a discussion of having his presentation sent to the select board to go along with with Abby's report, since it is sort of a supplement to it or an addendum of it. So I thought that was, didn't we have that discussion? I just want to make sure that
And to send it around to all of us. So
it was going to be sent around to all of us, and I haven't received it, so maybe Bruce just hasn't gotten to that yet.
It was supposed to go to all of you, yes.
Okay. I thought it was supposed to go to the select board as well, because I think it should be paired with that report. You know what I mean? Because it is an analysis of it and a review of it. I think it's appropriate that anytime that report is out there, that kind of be paired with it. So I thought we had sort of indicated that would happen, but you don't recall that part of it?
Who'd do
I thought
that?
it was
Bruce,
the-
I guess,
Somebody
right?
asked that it get circulated amongst
So-
us.
And I haven't seen it either.
But then I think we said, why don't we just make it available?
I have it, I can send it all to you today. Bruce's.
Oh, you have it, yep.
Can we send it to the select board as well, or
Or even just our representative?
yeah, maybe just our rep? Or it just seems like it needs to get.
Yeah.
It was a really good report, I thought, and you did a lot of work on it. So I'd hate for it to sort of only be seen by our eyes.
Right, so why don't, yes, if you could,
I'll send it to all of you and then you can
I can what?
send it all.
Well, send it to our representative and say, we think that this is
Oh,
worthy
to
of
Taylor.
further
Oh, yeah,
distribution.
well, Taylor's included.
That's why
in
we
all
have
of
a
it.
representative.
Taylor's included in all the emails anyway, so, and Bob.
It's on them to
Yeah,
Anyway.
okay.
represent.
Send it after the meeting. Send it on.
Okay. Anything else on the minutes? Have a motion to accept the minutes?
Move we approve the minutes.
Okay. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay, we've got 4 voting members, so Ron, you're up.
Yep.
You're a voting member. So is that a 5-0?
Yes.
Okay. Minutes approved. Next, new business. Any new business?
Can I just ask if, following from the new business of the minutes we just approved, was there a discussion with Parks and Rec? Who was going to have that discussion with Parks and Rec? And was that had about the kayak rack.
In, what, the minutes?
Yeah, that was new business from last meeting, that there was a decision made to talk to Parks and Rec and implement.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Beth, the director, and she said that as soon as Tom has a chance to get away from the snow bowl, we could run down there and I could show him what exactly I'm looking at as far as where I want to. I mean, there's already a place there, so all it would be was what do they want to do to make sure, because they're the ones going to be maintaining it, weed whacking around it and stuff. So it shouldn't take long.
What do you have in mind?
There's that huge tree that's leaning over on a big hill, and then it goes flat for a while, and then there's a small, this is at Lake Beach, and then there's a rock, little, I don't know, maybe 3 foot, there's rocks that bring you down to the beach. So all the way,
We're talking about storage for
I understand, yeah.
canoes, kayaks.
yeah, originally I had a lot of folks, around 14 years ago, I came to the select board and said, I want to put a dinghy rack there. I want to be able to put storage dinghies there, and then folks that live in that area can take their bikes or walk down to get to their mooring instead of trying to drive into the busy downtown and clog up the inner harbor. But it was just a horrible idea, the select board thought. One of the things that they were afraid of is that the people would drag their boats across the beach and flecks of bottom paint would get onto the beach and the children would eat the bottom paint and die. So it was just a horrible idea on Harbor Master's part. And I recanted that and thought, boy, so stupid of me to want to be able to put boats at Lake Beach. But over the years, people, I'm being a little facetious here, if you didn't notice, a lot of people.
We were writing that down as quotes.
Okay, a lot of people. No, I mean they did say that. Someone said, they're gonna, they're gonna drag the boats and bottom paint. And I was like, well, if they're storing it out of the water, they're not gonna have bottom paint on them. But sometimes, anyway, over the years, a lot of people say, can I store a boat at Lake Beach on the grass there? And I said, well, sure, if you want to, get around 10 people or 12 people and contact me and we'll go to the select board. Because I'm not going alone to offer up that idea. So finally, after so many people have said, can we do it, I came to the select board again and they think it's a good idea, so we're looking into it. Last summer, I put a big piece of bottom chain, a little bit longer than this table, right at the edge for people to at least tie their boats to say, this is where you put your boat, just to see. And maybe 4 boats showed up there. It has been a problem. So we're going to look at it again, maybe think about putting a kayak rack there and maybe making just kayaks go there. It's kind of in the conversation.
So would people have to get the same sticker from the town office as we do at Steamboat?
I think that's it. That would be in the conversation as well.
And then limit how many and things like that?
Yeah.
Those are the questions that I was really asking, is what's the
So,
deliverable?
and I think, a follow-up with that, Liz, I think, needs to pay attention to permits that you actually give out. I mean, if they're not 14 feet or less, there's an issue.
We could definitely have a special permit for that rack. And then Liz knows, I've already given my 15 out, and it's all it takes is 15, we're done. I don't know if we're going to run into that problem, but we might. So, yeah.
So
We do a steamboat landing with the dinghies stored on land over there. Do we keep track of those?
It's the same permit. For years, no one would used it. Then all of a sudden, in the last 4 years, it's people are realizing I don't have to bail my boat out if I do this, if I get a light one. So it's starting to catch on. It's like the car. A lot of folks were still holding on to their horse for many years after the car was made, but then they went over to the Renault.
please.
So,
So are we making any distinction between dinghies and kayaks and canoes? You're talking, you said you approached the select board about putting dinghies down there. Now you're talking about putting kayaks and canoes.
Yeah, that's all. This is happening pretty quick. Right now, it's one big mishmash, and now folks are saying it's in the conversation to say let's split it up. Let's not allow canoes. Period. If you're not, kayaks, we don't allow that down at the inner harbor where the falls are. Let's find a spot with them to go somewhere else. That's kind of in the conversation right now.
We're still in the
Yeah.
discussion stage of all that.
Yeah,
Now,
and I would
another idea would be the dinghy docks right in front of your office that you pull up onto.
What about?
You know, that's kind of a first come, first serve, and you grab it and you leave your cushions and stuff
Yeah.
there to reserve your spot.
It works out because you can't get to that unless you go down ladders. So a lot of folks are like, I don't want that, but a lot of folks do.
A lot of people think it's special, and like
Yeah.
like I said, I mean, they leave their cooler there.
Yeah, or their oars.
You know, it's
Put
like,
their oars
yeah,
down
this
like
is- yeah, don't touch. So maybe we ought to address that. I mean, that may be a good spot for canoes and kayaks. Pull them out there.
Why do we feel that we need to condescend to making any space for canoes and kayaks?
Well, as I,
Because it's residential use of the harbor. You know, it's like, what, you want to,
Why wouldn't we just draw a distinction? It's canoes and kayaks are something that you carry on and off of your vehicle, and you launch it, you use it, and then you take it home. That's just, canoes have always been that way, and kayaks are now that way. Dinghies are a different story. It takes two people to get it on the top of your vehicle. Dinghies are, they're something that people are actually going to use to communicate between the hard spot and the floating boat on the mooring.
I think you're onto something, but I think we're going to need to find a spot for canoe, like Lake Beach. Why would we make it so that's just canoes and kayaks?
Well, because of the visual impact on the park would be my first response. Second, what was the original intent of the park? And you're specifying a use by a small segment of the population and having an impact on everybody.
okay, so what I would suggest is that we add that discussion of canoes and kayaks to the next agenda. And,
Come with some ideas, actually. We've
and
talked about
maybe-
it. We've thrown stuff around.
And I'm questioning whether we ought to do maybe a site walk as the committee to walk different areas, or whether just individually before next meeting we come prepared and go look at every area and
Yeah.
come to the table with some ideas.
Well, wasn't Bruce going to go to the library folks to see would it be okay if we...
Jeremy did.
Jeremy?
talked to him, and I'm hoping he's going to show up and.
Because there's that natural, slope to put in kayaks, but we have to figure out where you would put kayaks, and would the extra traffic, we would make sure they realize they don't go down to the library park to start plugging into to Garth's power supply. We don't want that.
I don't like any kayaks plugged in.
No.
I don't like canoes, but kayaks.
The canoes have the seat warmers, so that's why they would plug in.
Okay.
Well, you also have the issue of parking
Yeah.
in both places,
Yeah.
every place.
Yeah.
Where we at? New business, there was no new business, is that correct? Okay, on to old business. First item in old business is the Windjammer addendums. Got the Library Park addendum and Public Landing addendum. Let's see.
Mark, the license agreement includes a reference to Steamboat Landing Addendum.
Yes.
Has that been?
There isn't one yet,
There
no.
isn't one yet.
Right.
But there will be, or maybe.
It's put in there for a possibility of one, yes.
I mean, it would seem that for anybody using Steamboat Landing commercially would need to do that. Is that correct? That's my understanding of it, yeah.
Yes, I don't know if that's actually been determined, but it was put in the agreement if that becomes required.
Steve, do we have unlicensed charter operations in the harbor currently?
Well, I guess you want to define that, unlicensed. I mean, if you're taking someone for hire, you better have a license. They might not.
License with the town.
Okay, yeah. Then we do have unpermitted folks that are using stuff that have no affiliation with the town. That would be someone like Rick Smith on Cimarron and Gracie. He's got 2 boats. Then that would also be Captain
Donnie Mann,
Donnie Mann. I was going to say thank you.
Nancy Wade.
Nancy Lade a few times will take
Yeah,
people out.
but
These aren't
it's-
big. It's not a lot of big stuff.
It's not-
It's once in a while.
Are they picking up and dropping off at the public landing or a public facility?
Yeah. Well, they'll either use
Sometimes.
steamboat landing. They may take their dinghy in to get 4 people, just like anyone else, and go drive it out to their boat. They don't take their boat out. Maybe once, if it's early in the season and there's a lot of space, Rick might say, "Can I bring this boat in?" And I'll say, "Yeah, there's no one here." But yeah, so yes and no on that. They'll use the spot obviously for a small boat to pick people up.
Yeah, I mean, that gets a little bit tricky when you want to start regulating that stuff.
Like a dinghy, you mean? Yeah.
No, charter boats.
People doing.
You know, what happens if you've got it's the same thing. If you've got a charter boat that comes into the town dock and spends 2 nights at the town dock,
Yeah.
you know, how do you?
I remember having this conversation maybe 10 years ago. I remember the committee was like very adamant to say, as long as they're, staying within the ordinance, if they're going to stop in and pick people up at the 15-minute, touch and go, then yeah, like, why not? It's
Right. I
trying
mean,
to
if they're a resident of Camden, if they
promote marine
if they
business.
have a mooring,
Oh, I
They
think-
don't even have to be a resident of Camden.
well, right. Yeah.
Now you're
Yeah.
getting sticky.
I think if they're using it on a 15-minute basis, that's one thing. But if they're on a sort of regular schedule,
Sure.
and they're spending a significant hours, whatever it may be, that's a different. Then I think the town should be involved. But if it's somebody using the transient, the loading and unloading only spot, I don't know.
And
Probably
a cousin to that, a spin-off tangential conversation would be the fact that Artisan Boat Works, and Alex has come in many times and said, just to make sure, he said, "Well, we step a lot of masts, and we try to work with Steve. He wants to make sure he's not doing too much and getting people upset." And I think my feeling, and I think the committee's, is that his company builds and rebuilds traditional small sailing boats, and hasn't been a problem yet. So we're kind of monitoring things like this right now. I don't think we have anything set in writing. We might have to in the future, but right now it's kind of like watching it. Like
I don't see anything
Sounds to me like it's
that's
just
a red flag,
customary use. Of the
And
public
yes,
landing.
and
Yeah.
It's just what it's always been.
yeah,
the nice thing about that is it's a small town atmosphere, and you've got people working together, and that's a nice feel rather than over regulating and that's.
I think
yeah.
as long as it's limited use, I absolutely agree. I think if it becomes a larger scale, if
Yes.
Alec was using it on a large scale and running a full business off of there that the town wasn't
Yeah.
regulating and or involved with, I think we would need to be careful of that. There are probably liability issues. Who knows? You know what I mean? But if it's a small scale, every so often somebody's stepping a mast.
He pushes it, but he makes sure he doesn't push too far. He came to me a couple of years ago and said, "Would you mind if we talked about putting some kind of derrick thing up so anyone wants to put a mast up at Steamboat Landing, there's one float that's got a special thing to help." And I was like, "No, we don't want to get into that."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it'll help other people that want to put masts up. Yeah, I know why you want to do this.
Do you keep a record of how often he's using that or anything, or anyone is using?
We keep a mental note. Jimmy, and especially when it starts to get busy, we'll look up and say, "Okay, look, he's got another." But his guys are smart. At Steamboat Landing, they'll go way to the very end, and to get out of people's way, and they do it pretty quick. They'll step a mast and 10, 15 minutes, and the boat's
Yeah.
off.
So I guess that's the long roundabout answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's in there if it becomes a problem.
Right. As long as it's being monitored, I have no problem with it.
The steamboat addendum. Question you asked about.
Or Elliot asked it, but yeah. Why is it in the commercial passenger vessel license agreement? In
I
case.
just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. went by
Yeah.
when I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so,
Can I just ask, if Jeremy's not here, what was the conversation with the library? Because that was the big part of the library park addendum.
Well-
Is this whole notion of permissions or?
Yeah, but I could run over to see who's there. Oh, yeah, run over real quick to see.
Yeah, these guys really need to hear about it. I'd really like to hear about
I could see the library not being enthusiastic about having kayaks down here.
that. Well, it's,
But that's.
no, that's a different,
That's a different, yeah.
I'm not sure if
They have
that was part of the scope of what Jeremy discussed.
well,
It seems like that was in some conversation.
Yeah, I
That would have been-
think so too, but
Last month and-
I think he was focused on the windjammers
Yeah,
when he talked to him, but,
this topic of having some sort of kayak rack down there has been brought up before, and I don't
Yeah.
know where it went to,
yeah.
if anywhere.
But now that they are talking about redesigning that whole part of the park, maybe that represents an opportunity. Who knows?
Certainly-
Change is coming, maybe.
Certainly to keep it in the discussion.
Yeah. Because it does seem like with that ramp that they've got there, that's like the ideal.
but it gets so flooded these days that the rack would have to be practically up
Auto launching.
off the dock. It's my-
Okay, does anybody have any discussion about these agreements? Either the library park or public landing?
I think excuse me, had sent a letter to the town manager, which I know you got,
I did.
and I was requesting a way that I could operate the Grace Bailey on weekends when she's not otherwise chartered out, but be able to operate the Grace Bailey, offering dinner cruises on Friday and Saturday as a part of my schedule. With the 3 boats, I got 45 trips, you know. Does that mean I could do 45 trips, or does that mean if I use the Grace Bailey 15 times, I'm done, and then I've got to go over to, use the Mercantile? For scheduling purposes, I wanted to give that a try, because we can't, unless we dedicate the vessel to that possibility, we won't be able to say whether or not we have availability until maybe a week or 2 weeks before the actual date. So,
You mean the date of the dinner cruise?
yeah, like let's say, as it goes now, let's say, okay, so I find out, or I realize, on the 4th of July that, geez, next week I only have, I don't have, a trip. I don't have it hasn't come together for the overnight cruises. So I wanted to be able to use it in this other commercial use. Yeah, so,
So, all right, to bring everybody up to speed on this, all right? Yesterday, Ray was in Audra's office discussing this. I happened to be walking by, so I got pulled into this conversation, okay? So we were trying to figure out how to do this equitably. My suggestion was that we put in the agreement that if one individual owner had more than one boat, that those 15-day trips could be transferable. Okay? So that way, if he had 15 day sail trips on the Maddie, he could transfer it to the Mercantile or use them on the Mercantile. okay? And that was unacceptable. So.
Wait a minute, unacceptable to who?
To Ray.
I never said that was unacceptable.
Yes, you did. But,
I'm here saying that it's not.
okay, but yesterday you said it.
I said that's not the way I would prefer it to be, and I said that I would come up with some verbiage, which
Right.
you asked for, that would allow me to do that.
Right. So
Yeah.
now the verbiage is that he wants the 15-day limit eliminated from the agreement. Okay? So in thinking that through, I mean, how do you do that and remain equitable? All right? Now, if we're opening up 6 windjammers to the possibility of dinner cruises every night of the week, that is a major impact on this harbor.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay. I didn't say that, what I suggested was that we use the definition of a windjammer to be the limiting factor. And the definition of a windjammer is a traditionally rigged vessel whose principal commercial operation is to engage in the trade of carrying passengers on cruises of at least one night or longer, during which time room and board are provided. For purposes of harbor management, the harbor master will be notified 24 hours in advance for cruises of shorter duration. That was my suggestion. I didn't say that what is there now is unacceptable. I just thought that would be a better way of limiting the
Well,
wait, let me just finish. I know I'm taking a moment here, but the principal use of the vessel, in order to qualify for the berth, you have to be a vessel that principally uses that, which goes against what you just said a minute ago. Well, what happens if every day of the week, all these boats are going to be doing it? Well, it's not going to happen because the principal use has to be the overnight business. So, I'm not saying, and I never said that I wouldn't accept what was there. I accept whatever the select board says. If they say no more dinner cruises, I'm done. If they say, whatever, I'm going to do what the select board says. But
What are you actually asking for? How many nights do you imagine that you would want to do a dinner cruise? Because I'm really getting confused between 15 and 45, or whatever your max would be if you took all of your 15s. I mean, because the select board has said what they're saying, and they're saying that there's a limit per boat.
yeah, and I'm requesting.
So they're asking for an extension. So my question is, how many do you imagine you would do? Because if we took a limit off, then it is possible that you would want to do a dinner cruise every night of the summer, because that might be more effective.
But it might, if it did that, then it would be contrary to the principal commercial
Which is why we
use.
set a limit.
No.
so here's what he's asked for. On paragraph C. All right, he's,
Can I just say one thing here to clarify what's going on? Last year, we did 8 cruises total of the potential 45 dinner cruises. Okay? The chances of us doing 15 are highly unlikely, but the potential is there, particularly if I want to commit one particular vessel to a schedule that I can publicize. You know, you can go on a dinner cruise on the Grace Bailey on Friday night or Saturday night, and people will book.
And that's all speculation, all right? The facts of the matter here are what you've asked for, all right?
Yeah.
Those are the facts.
Right.
Not that you've done 8 cruises, and the fact that because you're asking for unlimited, that you're probably only going to do 8 or 9 cruises, all right?
No, I'm not asking for unlimited. I'm not asking for unlimited.
I don't hear him asking for unlimited.
Well, that's what I'm trying to read you here, is what he has requested.
Why don't you read Mr. Chairperson, why don't you read to us what he requested, and we'll see if that's...
What is it you're reading?
Like I said, this is the commercial, the addendum, this is paragraph C. The licensee hereby specifically agrees, hold on just a second. The licensee specifically agrees that the schooner, windjammer berth, and the ramp, float, and mooring systems hereunder shall be used on a regular basis to offer trips on a traditionally rigged sailing vessel whose principal commercial operation is to engage in the trade of carrying passengers of cruises of at least 1 night or longer, during which time room and board are provided. For purposes of harbor management, the harbor master will be notified 24 hours in advance for cruises of a shorter duration. Cruises of a shorter duration. All he has to do is notify the harbor master 24 hours in advance for any cruise.
That's not the C that I have.
That's what I'm telling you. This is what Ray has requested.
But Ray rewrote this and gave it to you.
Yes. Which I guess I would question whether or not we should, this is a significant change to this addendum, and I would be concerned about having too in-depth a discussion about it without it being on an agenda, publicly noticed, so that other interested parties can come and testify. This is not a minor change. This is a significant change.
Exactly.
And I think that if we're going to entertain this type of a change at this late hour in the process, we need to open it back up I would suggest we need to open it back up to the public.
So, and in saying that, okay, this is now, this whole issue is now in review with the town attorney and the town manager because of this. Okay, so, and the guidance I got was to continue forward with the addendums as is, table this discussion for future modifications. And we're still waiting for the town attorney's opinion on this.
Your interpretation of what you just read is that he's asking to take the limits off of day sales?
Yes.
For windjammers?
Yes.
Is that correct, Ray?
No.
It just,
Is to have the transferability to take.
No.
That's not mine. That was a suggestion that came up.
What just got read eliminated any limit. What I just heard, and if
Limits
that were
aren't
the word.
mentioned.
The limit is that the berth is for traditional sailing vessels whose principal commercial use is overnight. So, if the principal commercial use of the vessel is overnight business, and we do occasional dinner cruises, that's okay. But if the principal use of the berth becomes trips that are less than 24 hours in duration, that's not okay.
yeah, but that's where it's where we are right now. Is the select board says exactly that, and it says it went from allowing windjammers that are principally overnight, can do day sales, and now they've brought it from 3 to 15.
And
Right,
that's-
and then said they would review that and see, you know. It's just a request. I'm not here, pounding the table saying this,
Sure.
this has to be. I'm just saying, I've made a request. I think it's a reasonable request, and I would like it to be discussed.
Well, I will say this, that I'm never going to say that we make it so we take the 15 out.
Right.
We might be able to say, if you have more than one permitted vessel, then you could take, the
Transfer.
You could transfer, so the Grace Bailey, because it doesn't make any difference to the harbor whether it's the Bailey or the Merc that's leaving. There's no more traffic. You already have the right to do it, so I don't think anyone's going to care that it's one boat. If you want to say, okay, it's easier if I let the Bailey do the 30 or whatever, or if you have 3 boats, you take the other 15. Well, that's an easier.
I'm not saying, and I never said that was unacceptable to me.
All right, good. Well, we got something out of this meeting.
If that's the way the powers that be want it to be, then that's the way it will be.
Which is to
I'm just making a
combine-
request.
Which is to combine the 15 individual vessel permit day sales onto one boat. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm
what,
suggesting, that's what he's suggesting.
What he's suggesting is we take off the limit and just understand
No,
what the philosophy of a windjammer is.
Obviously, just
That's
can't-
not what he's
Can't
suggesting.
seem to understand what it is you're requesting, Ray. We're all at a loss here because we all have a different opinion of what it is you're requesting. And we've
Okay,
all,
let me try to make it as simple as possible.
Oh, this will be good.
If a windjammer has to be a traditionally rigged sailing vessel's principal commercial use is engaged in the trade of carrying passengers on cruises of at least one night or longer, during which time room and board are provided, then that has to be,
We have 6 of those.
Principal use.
We have
I
6 of
understand
those.
that. That's been in the rules for some time.
Yes.
So
Right.
So what are you
Right.
requesting?
so that I'm.
in addition to that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm trying to suggest is that we use that as the criteria for limiting the number of cruises.
It already is.
It is, very clearly.
It already is. By definition, a windjammer, we've read the definition over and over again. You've read it twice today.
Yeah.
We know it.
We know it, right?
So what are you asking to do, what change are you asking for?
That we allow that
Both.
definition to determine the number of trips, as opposed to putting a number of 3 or 15 or.
So you're saying if
whatever.
over the season you do 20 overnight cruises, you can do 18, just as long as you don't exceed? 'Cause-
No, if the principal use commercial operation.
What does
is
that mean,
overnight-
Ray?
We have to define, I think we have
Now, well, we just went through this and everybody's telling me, we know that already, it's already
Well,
in
what does it
there.
mean to you?
What does it mean to me?
I don't know what it means to me. It means that you better be doing more overnight trips than you do day trips. 'Cause that's the principal use.
Yeah.
So how many more nights, yeah, I think the rub is what defines the word principal. If you say, well, I do 10 overnight trips, 4 days apiece, well, that's 40 nights, of overnight trips, and I'm gonna do
Yeah.
32
Yeah.
day sails.
Exactly. That's
So does it still qualify as principal?
yeah. And I'd rather just put
So
and
the definition of principal, which is tangled web.
Yeah.
So what is the reference?
well, that's exactly. It's a nice idea, but we want to. The town wants to make it so we know how many day trips are going to be allowed. I don't want to have you doing me or my deputy having to do math on how much revenue you made and how many nights you spend with a full moon. We want to know how many nights we're going to allow a windjammer to do a day sail.
So let's take the word principal out.
No, let's leave the word, because we need to figure out the number, 15.
And how that can be apportioned across multiple vessels. That's one way to straighten this out, I believe.
Now,
That's a way. is to allow Ray to move some of those 15 from the Mercantile to the Grace Bailey. So Ray can advertise a dinner cruise in late August after he's already used his 15 for the Grace Bailey. And
That's,
is that a reasonable interpretation of what you'd like to do?
It helps me do what I hope to do. You know, truth is that, you know, I might not do 15 cruises. I mean, I don't,
If you don't do 15, it's a moot point.
right.
But could I ask, though, in the broadest sense of fairness, this gentleman happens to own 3. There are 3 others that are individually owned by one owner each. If the Mary Day decides, we're not in the day sail cruise thing, I'm going to give my 15 to the Angelique. Because you know what? The Angelique really sees that as an opportunity. I mean, you want to be equitable. Is there room to flex amongst those who own and fit the criteria?
I would rather not give them, I'd like to sell them to Dennis.
That's between you two, okay?
But in the spirit of fairness, I mean, I'd like to, you know, where's the equity?
Exactly, all right?
I want a piece of that action.
So with that, all right, now you say, okay, you want to be equitable on this, and we want to open it up maybe to see how this works, okay? So we do one berth, one boat, say the Grace Bailey, unlimited dinner cruises, and then
Special fee.
a special fee, and then to make it equitable to everybody in the fleet, you've got your minimum fee and then sealed bids for that slip.
Say that again?
Sealed bids. So
that's not gonna happen.
every boat has the opportunity to bid on that slip.
That's transformational of your stock and trade.
Are you talking about our berths? That you want to put our berths out to bid?
This is the concept. This is what makes it equitable across the whole fleet.
Well, it would, besides that sounding that crazy, I think what he means, and Mr. Chairperson, tell me if I'm wrong, if you currently have a permit to run a windjammer in Camden Harbor, then you're allowed to be in the silent bid to say, I want my berth, and I'm not going to change where I go or anything, or my lines and chains and blocks, but I'm going to bid, and if I get that bid, then I get to do unlimited dinner cruises. Because I bid the highest. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's
I don't want folks who
That's not, but yes,
scare these guys away. With a,
that's a move to making it equitable, yes.
And I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's the only way I would think it would make sense.
So you're going to designate one specific berth that dinner cruises can be operated from?
This is just a concept, all right?
an idea.
I'm trying to understand the
This
concept.
is a way to make it
Basically, one berth.
equitable
One boat would be able to do it.
among the whole fleet.
One boat out of the whole fleet
Out
can
of-
do
out of this
unlimited day sails.
Yes.
Why would you do that?
We're not sure. Just a
If you're
concept.
trying to help the windjammers, why would you say that, you know, the Mary Day can't do the dinner cruise because he didn't bid the highest?
First of all, we're not in the business of operating businesses or protecting businesses. We're here to look out for the welfare of the harbor and the town, okay? And what it does is it regulates the traffic in the harbor.
Which I think Mr. Chairperson is trying to say is that's not our first concern. Obviously, we want our business to be healthy and vibrant.
Yes.
We're off subject. We're off
We are off subject, we are.
Well, but that's just,
Stable us.
that's just,
That's just,
Crazy, right?
it's just a
I
nonsense.
mean, come on.
I knew Ron was going to have to say something about this one.
No, at some point, this has to stand a straight face.
Exactly.
You're right.
And if
Exactly.
you haven't got a good reason for making a suggestion, I recommend you don't make it. Okay? I mean, Why don't we stay real here?
Okay.
On one hand, you're saying that we're not in the business of telling people how to operate their business.
Right?
We're here to protect what? Something
harbor.
about the harbor.
The harbor, the
use of
traffic in the harbor.
The appearance of the harbor, the aesthetic of the harbor. Yeah, so if you're going to say that you're going to put it out to bid, you're only going to put it out to bid to the windjammers that hold a license agreement with the town of Camden? Or are you opening it up to?
I don't know. It's in a conceptual stage, Ron.
Okay.
All right? It's like if you're going to allow one boat in the harbor to operate dinner cruises, how do you handle that?
I don't understand why you would say that.
I'm not asking for that.
Why come up with a hypothetical that
It's
isn't
just a
even being
it's just a
requested?
concept. I think we tabled this, like you said earlier.
Yeah, just as
I
a,
have a question for Ray. Two questions, actually. You said you did 8 cruises last year?
Yep.
What boat was that?
Most of them on the Grace Bailey, but there were a few on the Mercantile.
Dinner cruises?
We may have done 1 or 2 lunch cruises
Okay,
as part of that.
both of them. So that's separate from the summertime?
Excuse me?
Separate from your summertime?
Yeah.
You did dinner cruises on the summertime also?
Yep.
Okay, and we've heard that you you gave a letter to the town manager that states your proposal?
It was an explanation for my request. And it basically said, I found it difficult to book these dinner cruises because I couldn't book them in advance. So I made a proposal that I would make the Grace Bailey available on the weekends when she's not chartered. And then, so we've got a few charters already that are, that are going to happen and they're going to be gone for the weekend. So that was my purpose for making the request.
And is that something that could be shared with the committee?
Oh, of course.
What, the letter?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we can see in writing what Ray states he wants.
There it is.
There it is, right there.
Read it out loud.
No, I think we should table this.
yeah, I think rather than having one person read this aloud, I think this is, as I said originally, this is a substantive change. I think
Right.
today I thought we were here to finish this project that we've been working on for several months now of finalizing these documents. I guess my question would be, is the guidance from the select board and the town attorney that we should hold on approving these prior to that, or should we approve what we've been working on? There's a separate request that has come in at the, recently. I think that should be taken up in a separate measure, separate item. Like I said, that is, I'm confused.
All right,
as to-
so the motion is to table Ray's request.
And vote on what's already there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And move forward with the current agreements as they stand.
Yeah.
Except I'd really like some clarity about the library park. Is the library saying they no longer need to be notified? I mean,
I talked to Jeremy just now. They're not interested in allowing kayaks at this time, and they are working on, what Jeremy said is, they want to draft something up that pretty much says they don't need to be notified. That's the word I got. It's not in writing yet, but that's basically where he says the intonations of what he got from their talk.
because the only other recommendation I would make, and I don't know that it's in our purview, is if you have looked at the parking sign at the top of the access down towards those schooners, you couldn't actually understand what you could or couldn't do. It is a 600-year-old sign that's totally illegible. And so if we really want to help people not drive down there and not park and not,
Get a better
let's
sign.
actually get an appropriate and legible sign.
Good idea.
Otherwise, I'm good to go.
Done. Coffee.
I have a quick question about ours. It's just not, it's, maybe I just missed it. Are these for 1 year, or are these for 3 years?
3 years. Yes.
It says that somewhere
That says that in the
in the other one. Okay.
main body.
Yep. Gotcha.
Okay. Any other discussions?
I have a couple of questions here about the library park addendum. Paragraph C, the last paragraph of that refers to written notification to the trustees of the library. And I'm not at all sure what that's for.
We just
Well,
been asking about.
that was the old rule, and I think they're trying to
That's the one that I just
say,
got handed.
No, but that's why I've been asking. Jeremy was going to the harbor board, the library board, and we're trying to get that knocked out. And it
Yeah.
sounds like.
It's still up in the air.
Still up in the air, they don't know yet.
Get knocked out. I think, as written, I think the idea is that this paragraph C, as written, would suffice, meaning it says, provide with written notification to the town, to the trustees, as opposed to permission from the, and I think that was the idea, was this is we are saying, we're going to do one on August 22nd, and that's fine. They don't have to respond. We've told you. If they have an objection for some reason, then they would talk to them and da-da-da-da-da. There'd be a negotiation back and forth. But, so.
This was our proposal to the library.
Yeah, it was a step in the right direction.
Well, and I think there was a question on that of whether they had to notify them every trip or just do a blanket notification at the beginning of the season, say, we intend to do occasionally.
Yeah. I think we talked about that. That was Garth's idea. Well, you, these roads.
This, to me, and very, written notification is it's so much better than having your permission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether I have to write 3 letters or 1 is really, it's all right, either way, it's fine. Just the idea that they can't say no, or yes or no, or we can talk about it is so.
Sure.
Yeah, much more freeing. So.
Yeah, you got folks on board and they say, oh, wait, no, we can't do it. You know? I mean,
So this is good wording.
It's fine with me, yeah.
Okay.
Second one, paragraph E is parking. 1 parking permit shall be provided. The vessels at the head of the harbor do use parking, but that's all on library property?
It's Atlantic Avenue.
The parking
They get a
permit
permit.
is for up on the street, not at the loading, unloading zone.
Oh, okay.
That's, because of loading and unloading zone, we need a parking permit so we can move our vehicles up onto the street.
Okay. If you understand what it means and happy with it,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
am.
no, there's no such thing.
Yeah,
as
we
a parking permit.
we discussed that last
In the
month,
loop.
because in fact, their Atlantic Avenue permit does not allow them to park down at the harbor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Much to
Yeah,
my
my wife
disappointment.
tried to use it to park in front of the police station and she got a ticket. I couldn't believe it.
basically, it says you can't leave your vehicle in the right of way.
What, in the handicapped?
Yeah.
It's a right of way and you can't park in it.
Okay. Any other discussions?
Just to briefly go back to C, the town is making an agreement that, it's imposing an agreement on the trustees of the public library. Unless they've agreed that that's what they want, then the town's imposing it on them.
I believe they have agreed to that. Between the select board and the library, I would say.
I mean, the truth of it, Ron, is that as it was stated before, it was that the library needed, the schooners had to ask permission. And for years and years and years, I've spoken to library staff, very high up in the library, who were not even aware that that was an expectation and were not looking for it or responding to it.
Exactly. It's an
And so
old-
this is us, the town, saying, you know what? It was in an agreement at some point based on history. You have chosen to ignore it. This is what we're telling the schooners. they will do to honor the history, if you will, by letting you know what they're intending to do. So, and if they don't come back with any
Yeah.
concerns, I think we can eventually move to, it's a moot point, and we don't even have to do that. But this is a good step in the right direction.
Yeah. And they understand that those are designated windjammer berths.
Yes.
So that they can refer to this to find out what that means.
Okay, good.
Anything further? Motion to accept the library park addendum and public landing addendum as is and present to the select board for approval.
I second that.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Do you know, or maybe Liz, does anyone know when this might, would this go to like the next select board meeting? I mean, I know I can read the paper and visit the town website and all this stuff, but how soon does this how soon does it take for this to get transmitted to an agenda for the select board? Does that take? And part of why I ask is because, the order of operations has been a little funny this particular season. We got a bill for the lease, and then we got a letter asking us to write a letter stating our intention to renew the lease, and there's still no lease. And I may have to write a check to the town for the lease before I actually have a lease that's been approved by the, you see how it kind of gets
A little fuzzy.
a bit of a long
You make a good point.
Well,
So I'm just kind of wondering about timing, that's all. And maybe no one here knows.
and I don't know, but we'll try to get it on the next one or as soon as possible.
When is the next select board?
The town manager makes that decision.
Tuesday, isn't it?
Just last Wednesday, so
Next week.
Yeah, the chairperson could definitely make an advise the town manager that it should be on
it
the
needs to
closest
be
one.
before, yeah.
I mean, I'll head right there after this meeting and say,
Yeah.
we're ready.
So,
Okay? And
But penalties for late payment start accruing immediately.
this is going to get better.
I'll just leave a blank check.
Yeah, it's been a little backwards.
Leave it in a little cash list. Thank you.
For the entire process.
with that, with what you said, can we or should we maybe make a motion that no late fees would be assessed?
Yeah, I wouldn't have anyway.
No, yeah,
We wouldn't have anyway.
It's burning a hole in my pocket, I got to give it to somebody.
yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you might go on vacation.
I did that yesterday. Back in Archery. That's my vacation.
See you guys.
Okay. Under old business, we've got on there follow-up on the breakwater and the wood report. I don't believe there's any follow-up yet on breakwater. Jeremy's still waiting to hear from the state
From
The
the
feds.
Army Corps.
or the
Yeah,
feds.
from the Army
Yeah, Army Corps, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
He
they
told
do.
me that they told him that they couldn't come and give us a presentation.
Yeah, they want to do a conference call or something. Wood report. Has anybody read that?
That's the public landing report.
Yes.
I saw it was 37 pages and decided that I needed to
Yeah.
come back and try it at some other
And,
time.
and I kind of breezed through it, and I did read quite a bit of it, but some of it was just. I mean, the report consisted of an analysis of several harbors, which we only got the Camden portion of it, and my take on it was that it assessed the condition of our harbor in pretty good condition. However, it also designated like $1.8 million to rebuild the new docks that we've already rebuilt. And it also, it designated like $1.8 million to redo the Harbor Masters building to protect it from storm damage.
Well, we got to compete with Rockport then.
I mean, it's a $20,000 shed city building. If it blows away, replace
It'd
it.
be 15 if we built it like the last Harbor Master in the highway to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I don't like about these reports. You get these people come in and it's
Exactly.
inflated so much.
So my point is, I mean, we need to look at this and take it with a grain of salt, because I mean, people can pick at those numbers and say, well, this is what the state recommends, and all of a sudden it becomes a real number. And
I think it's important to focus on the vulnerabilities that were cited in the report and attach secondary importance to the numbers. We all know that they look funny, and if we wanted to go out, we could do a lot better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the primary benefit is that they're identifying vulnerabilities. And that's what we should.
And what are they? Or what do you
well,
recall? I mean, the major one is the electric, right?
Yeah, right, and with the, sea level rise and storm surge being the issues to be addressed. And they did an assessment of the current infrastructure and cited what they felt were some current shortcomings and offered some suggestions for mitigation for the sea level rise and storm surge. So I think the values they cited for doing this and that are not, all that meaningful for us today. It's looking and seeing what the challenges are and what directions we might want to go in to address those challenges. And just as a matter of curiosity, yesterday at 11:15, I went down to look at the high tide and see where it was, and it was a nice calm day, and the seawall elevation changes. It's low down toward Peter Ott. It gets higher up toward the falls. Maybe might be a foot difference, or maybe a little less than a foot difference in the top of the seawall. I also observe subsidence up there in the asphalt off of the boardwalk. And I think that's been an ongoing thing, and it gets patched regularly, but it kind of makes me wonder about that subsidence and how that happens.
On the town hall?
On the public landing. Yeah, right by the fisherman's parking area right now. There's a couple of holes.
But at least
Something's washing out on
three times a year at least in the summertime, I got to call them up. The holes start.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
at least. Maybe not that much, but it always seems like there's something going on there.
So that's the benefit I got out of it. The numbers of $1.8 million to redo the moorings for the floating docks. I didn't really, I don't know what that takes.
That number was obsolete before the ink dried.
$500,000 for Steve's. Maybe Steve and these wood people had some offline dialogue, and Steve prescribed some requirements for the harbor master's office that we don't know about.
Jacuzzi.
No, I want it very small, just a little bit bigger than what I have now. I have an idea that I've met with the downtown. There's a small group, Meg Barkley is in it. Yeah, the design group, and I have an idea of what I want to do, and they're working on it. All right, Matt.
What about maintaining the current building? Like a coat of paint?
Yeah,
Level it up, get rid of some of the...
I leveled it about 4 years ago, and that's back down to where it was, but I could try to get the backhoe in there and, figure out how to do that. Yeah. I didn't expect to have this building this long, Ron, that's why I kind of In my capital improvement, it was supposed to be 5 years ago, it was supposed to have a new building. But because we have all these new designs, we're kind of holding up on it. So we're just kind of making that last as long as we have to.
Well, what do you see as the deficiency?
It's not big enough. I have all my tools, all that stuff in there, and so I try to hold it business. I try to hold business in there with mooring. You know, someone has a mooring issue, you know, privacy. There's always people in there, so
It's not secure either.
yeah, it's not secure. Anyone can get in there. Not that there's not much to. I guess there is some, you know, there's stuff to break, and I've never had anyone break. Once I had some radios stolen, a long time ago.
If we had a 100-year storm, we'd have significant damage down there.
Yeah, I think the building would be gone if we had a 100-year storm.
Yeah, Steve's building would be the least of the problems.
Good riddance, is what I'd say.
Okay.
I just think that this renovation of the public landing, that conversation's been going on like a
Oh, a long time.
years,
Oh, yeah.
2013. I don't think that's a
No,
good
way
excuse.
before that.
I don't think that's a good excuse to not maintain what we have.
Sure, and I don't know what you mean by maintain the buildings.
Well, coat paint, you know,
Level it.
level it up, clean up the, you know,
Wiring,
just generally make it more presentable.
Maybe
that'd be
get
good.
Public Works to deal with that small lake that forms right by the back door.
I asked him once. I could ask him again.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe prod them again, you know,
Try to get some
when they get,
hot patch in there.
when they're have a spare batch of hot mix.
Can do.
Maybe we could have a community day down there at the harbor master's office and
Hot dogs and hamburgers if you help paint.
fix it up, clean it up.
Very clean.
Very clean.
Uh-huh.
Burn your socks.
Yeah. With regard to the federal report about the breakwater, I just wanted to comment that it appears that was economics driven. And I noticed in the report that there was mentioned that with a certain breakwater configuration, the mooring count in the harbor could be doubled to exceed 900 moorings and increase the fishermen's fleet to 100, or the commercial fleet, I think, to 100 plus boats. And I thought that those were pretty big numbers, and I wondered what 900 moorings might look like out in the Camden Harbor.
Couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Is that report funded by the town? Andy, have any money for that? Or is that something else?
I can't say with certainty, I don't think so.
They hope not.
I don't think so.
I mean, it was extensive.
The next phase of that involves the town
Yes.
contributing some fairly substantial.
Significant dollars, 7 figures. 7 figures,
Was it
20%,
six
was it?
figures?
Well, I don't know. I
No,
remember,
for the study, it's $250,000.
Yeah, 250 to 500 was a big number that I remember one.
I think the local share of that would be 200 to 250,000 for the next, for the feasibility study,
Right.
which would be the next level up, which is what would basically confirm or refute all of the findings in the federal interest determination, which was the first study. It's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
What I understood Jeremy to say is that the feds approached the town because if the town isn't interested in pursuing anything like this, they want to take us off the list.
That's what I
That's
understood.
correct.
But and the feds are very reluctant to take us off the list, so.
They want to spend that money.
Oh, yeah, they want to keep getting the money for them, but
To do the
continue
work.
looking at this
To do the
on some schedule.
They want to make sure that
They'd like to do the whole
So,
project.
you know, and until we actually hear from the feds and, you know, understand what's going on, I mean, it's all speculation. I mean, so,
But I mean, the way I understood it, when you look at it historically, it was an idea, because it started a very long time ago, of how to make a small town economic. And putting in a breakwater would have potentially allowed for winter moorings, winter traffic, business, commercial opportunities. So like that has gone. That's not even.
Well, it also
I
makes it
just-
so you
it
can have a
makes it-
different type of mooring system.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do
Totally.
as a committee, we should have some more, bring in, for the next agenda, for next month, put in public breakwater discussion. And let's see if the basic person that lives in Camden and in the around area, Rockport, if we actually want a breakwater.
Well, I think we have, before we do that, I think we have to wait and hear, we have a call out, we have an invitation out to the Army Corps.
Yeah.
Let's hear from them so we know
That's
what we're talking about and so that the public knows what they're commenting on. That would be my only concern with that is, they would make a lot of statements about something and then they wouldn't know what they were talking about, what they were speaking to. So let's play this out the way it's, kind of play out. The feds will give a presentation on this thing, and then, the town, select board, public, us, this committee, everyone can then respond to it and say, this is garbage, take it away forever, or they'll say, this is interesting, let's keep going. I don't have an opinion either way, I'll be honest. So, let's see how it plays out.
There were 3 or 4 proposals in terms of, they even had a breakwater just outside of the yacht club.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's so many variables that even putting that out and having a conversation in general public, it's just going to go round and round. First of all, we really ought to make some recommendations as to what to eliminate to talk about. Some of it just doesn't make sense.
Let's hear from them. They can put out all their crazy ideas, really lay out all the different options, and then we can say, okay, that's nice. If there's 5 options, let's talk about 3. Or
See, I think that's what the whole next study is about, isn't it?
I disagree. I think we need to have discussion and say, here's what we want if we do want one. So they don't say, well, here's what we're going to do. No, if you're going to do something, we're going to do it this way. This is what's going to help us.
Yeah.
If we want it at all, we might want to keep it just the way it is.
Yeah, the report has already made all this wide range of recommendations.
3 different types.
And talked about the impacts of each of them. We need to do our homework and read up on that, see which one of those stands a straight face test and eliminate it if it doesn't. And then have a conversation about what we think is the most common sense thing to do. Taking into consideration that there's some cost in
my understanding of what the Army Corps was going to present is an explanation of that federal interest determination report. And I think that would be helpful to hear from, because it is a complex and in-depth report. I think it would be helpful to hear from them what their rationales were, how their methodology of how they created. I think, for example, that the innermost breakwater options were actually removed. If you read through that report, I believe that they said these were removed from consideration. So then we're talking about, because they talked about inner harbor breakwaters and outer harbor breakwaters, and I believe that they said the inner harbor breakwaters were actually removed from consideration, and so they really were just talking about out on the ledges and out between Curtis Island and Dillingham Point. That was my read of it, but again, I think it would be good to hear from them to get them to clarify what they're saying. So I would propose we just, I think that this is going to happen fairly soon, this presentation, this conference call, whatever it's going to be.
Something that Jeremy is dealing with. So, until we hear from Jeremy on this, sit tight and let's see what happens.
With respect to the Wood report, I'd be interested to know, if we get some input from the select board and the town manager about what they want to do with this report. There was a media interview with Audra after the report was issued, and she talked about, in very general ways, that considering this report and future initiatives by the town. But I think it'd be nice to get some input from the select board as to how they interpret it and what they want to do with it. And with regard to that, we do not have a select board representative with us today.
Liaison. We're missing our liaison.
Liaison, thank you, Steve. I know Taylor has work conflict, and that's an important thing for him. I wonder if we should ask the select board to make sure that they have a representative in our meetings.
Wouldn't hurt.
Can ask.
Wouldn't hurt.
Could I ask, I mean, it is
I'll
televised.
tell
I
Allison.
mean, they
Allison
certainly-
calls me up all the time. I'll tell her we need her to start coming.
One thing I think that should be talked about before, I mean, because we tend to put off the things that we can do something about now with very little cost in anticipation that, oh my gosh, there's this great big thing coming. We can't make any moves until we figure out what this great big thing is. Camden Harbor doesn't have an anchorage anymore. It's supposed to be a harbor of safe refuge. It's supposed to be a place where if someone needs to come in and get out of the storm, they can. And mooring field has encroached on the anchorage that used to be defined on the charts. It was labeled. So, and I think that we're losing revenue because of that. I think that there are boats that would come in and spend the night if they had swinging room. Just throwing that out there. If we're going to talk about eliminating moorings for the Wayfarer project, and that's going to be a big impact on the number of mooring spaces available. Let's also talk about recreating and reclaiming our anchorage so that large vessels don't have to anchor in the channel in order to have swinging room.
Yeah, the designated anchorage zone has changed over between Dillingham Point and Curtis Island.
So it's outside of the harbor.
Well, no, it's still considered in the harbor.
It's considered the outer harbor, isn't it?
It's out of the harbor, yeah.
Yeah.
There certainly is no.
And there is still anchorage area, just to be clear, in the outer harbor. I mean, I went out last summer and I counted 6 or 8 boats on anchors, on chain, in the outer harbor out by the ledges and by, just inside of Sherman's Point. So, I mean, we do have, I agree with you that it has, like most harbors, it has gotten smaller over the years. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think it's totally accurate to say that we don't have an anchorage. I think it is fair to say that we do have an anchorage. It's just gotten smaller. And also that, while the moorings is an ongoing issue, just to be clear, we are not talking about, we're talking about hopefully moving moorings in the Lyman Morse project as opposed to eliminating. You know what I mean? We are talking about shifting those moorings. Steve is developing a plan so that hopefully we will not lose moorings in that area.
Right, but I don't see how you can do that without impacting the anchorage that we do have, the limited anchorage space that we still do have. It isn't the anchorage space we used to have,
No,
by any
it's not.
stretch of the imagination.
Right.
I think that's not just Camden Harbor. I mean, that's happening.
I'm sure that.
That's happening in every harbor,
I know it for a fact.
Yeah.
It's got to the point
Yeah.
where cruising boats are hard pressed to find a place to
Yeah.
spend the night.
Yeah.
Because
So,
the anchorages have been encroached upon on just about every harbor on the coast.
right. So I
But that
guess my
doesn't make
point
it-
is, I mean,
There are
it's,
harbors where you can't anchor.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Right. No, the change is huge compared to what it was
yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah, and if someone calls me up and says, VHF or Marcel, and says, hey, we're a 40-foot boat and I'm on a budget, I need a place to go, me and Jimmy will find a spot. It's not like we say, wow, sorry. I mean, I don't want, we take care of folks if they make a request that they need a spot.
Put them on mooring.
Yeah, if we can't, we can always find a spot for a 50-foot spot to anchor. It might not be the best, or Jimmy and I have like a cache of motel. Well, Chip's not using his. That's for a 46-footer. Let's let him use that for the night. We won't even charge him. We tried our best to keep him. I do agree it has, just because of the fact that there's so many more people that want permitted moorings that we've encroached over the last 20 years.
ties into the conversation about these huge vessels coming in and using the public dock. You know, those boats don't need to be tied up to a dock.
That's, like I said, that's a good conversation, and I'm willing to hear what people say about it.
If there were a place for them to anchor, because we don't have a mooring suitable for them.
Well, those folks do not want to anchor, and they will not anchor. Their anchors never hit the mud. I don't know why you think they want
They're
to.
all like
That's-
polished.
That's not true.
Oh, completely true. What are you talking about? I talk to these guys all the time. They're not going to drop their anchor in the mud. They come to Camden for a reason.
I've worked in the industry, Steve.
I'm
Seen
just
it.
telling you that
Seen it in-
I want this conversation to happen because I want to do the right thing. I hear you when you say that, you know, it's not right that we're letting these boats come in, and I want to see what everyone else says so we can come to a decision and then move forward.
Yeah, okay, well, we just can't make blanket statements like those both don't
Okay, well, that's on the agenda for next meeting. So, now we're at Harbor Master's report, if you haven't said enough already.
Get busy. Whoa.
I don't think I meant that the way it sounded.
It didn't come out the right way. I just want to point out real quick. This is interesting. So this is the as of after last summer, after July of last summer, we had 15 moorings that became available, which was more than usual at that time of year. They've all been reassigned. And I'm just going to run down the length so you guys get an idea. So these are the lengths of the boats. 29 feet, 19 feet, 33, 27, 26, 23, 19, 17, 21, 24, 22. That's the basic idea. Now, as of over the winter, I've got a list of 15 moorings, and I have to reassign them yet. And here's the lengths. 36, 35, 25, 19, 34, 44, 32, 28, 31, 36, 36, 35, 36, 22, 14. So just to get you an idea of what's moving, and that's more than usual for this time of year. I don't know what's prompted that. So I'll be busy doing that coming up soon. Today I'm meeting with the highway. We're going to look at the first 2 floats at the Steamboat Landing, and we're going to try to, I got the select board's okay last November to spend some money to try to, the first 2 are the ones that, you know, they get grounded out the most and do this, and they're on the ground while the other ones are doing this, and so kind of in rough shape. But I'd like it if we could, well, this is their 20th, this will be their 20th summer they've served us, these floats. I don't think we can ask much more. I believe in my capital improvement plan, I think in 2 years, I think that's when I've said we need to replace them, so I'm going to try to make them last that. So we're going to be looking at that today.
So, on the Steamboat Landing, I know that the issue has been brought up several times about broken cleats out there. Why do those cleats break? And are they necessary? Could we just use the wood ties?
You could try to go with the wood ties. I've replaced like 3 cleats so far.
Yeah. I know for some reason, out on the end there, the cleats always seem to break.
You know, that's why.
Are we seeing the same cleat getting broken multiple times, or is it a matter of the broken cleat? They believe they could be awkward to replace.
The dinghy side's got one too, I think.
The cleat itself is actually broken or just pulled out?
Yeah, no, an ear is broken
One
off.
of the ears is broken off, I think this one.
How does that happen?
Either.
Is that winter storage and handling?
No,
I don't,
I don't ever remember having Current. Current breaks a lot of things, but he hasn't broken a cleat.
I'll see how.
I'll take a look at it.
I don't see how with the size boats that are using those cleats, they're getting,
Yeah, it could
they're
have-
getting broken by lines tying to them.
No.
They're getting broken by something getting dropped on them.
Yeah, it might have been something like that. Something heavy, someone getting off a boat. Yeah. So that's it for the harbor report.
What's the schedule for the fisherman float replacement?
Well, you mean the float that brings you to the Finger Float Marina? I'm hoping that that's going to be ready. We had a late start because the select board wouldn't okay the money, but they're on it now. They're being built over at Custom Floats. and I told him the date I wanted them, so
Which is,
I think it was April 15th. I'll check. See how that's going.
Does that coincide with when you install the finger floats?
Yeah, that gives us a good leeway. I mean, I put them in, you know, there's a certain date I put them in just because if we get a big spring. 2015, I remember, it was my 6th year as harbor master, and I'm like, oh, I can put them in earlier. People use them, and then we had that 50-year storm, and they all got demolished. So yeah, I think it's going to work out pretty good.
Okay. Looks like it's a wrap.
There you go.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks for your time. Next meeting? Let's do it.
You? I didn't read it. I need to focus on it and think about what I'm seeing.
How much are they?
Next meeting, April 7th, 8 a.m.
Next meeting,
How much are they? Can I come get one more time?
What is it?
April 7th,
that's a Tuesday, I gather.
and it's Tuesday.
April what?
7th.
I won't be here.
8th?
No, I'm gone that week, sorry.
Oh, the whole week?
Yeah. God forbid, take a vacation.
Yes.